I think it's aesthetically, it's a very important car for Porsche because up until 73 and the Carrera coming out, you know, even the fastest of 911s predated the exercise of aerodynamics and avoiding drag and having a balance between the two things. And then the wider rear guards of a 2.7 Carrera and some kind of aerodynamic device on the deck lid became signatures of hot 911s. So when you then look at, you know, as the 70s became the 80s, even if you forget the factory stuff, when people modified their own cars and tried to mimic things, they were effectively going to a point that they learnt from Porsche's Larry race, you know, 911 based racing cars. Because even if you look at the, you know, cars like the 2.1 RSR, the first turbocharged thing, everything was exaggerated. And that's the thing about 911s, they're kind of Jekyll and Hyde cars to drive sometimes, but in visuals, that language of widening and putting a device
function, right? So you look at Porsche's history, they got wider, they got more wings, they got more aerodynamics. And that was really, you know, that was the function. They needed to keep the cars planted to the road, high speed, and they needed the grip generated by these wide tyres. And the body shape remained the same, but the flares got wider and the wings got bigger all throughout the Porsche's history. And that's what we end up with today.
The 2.7 Carrera was the first car that had an aerodynamic device installed in it as standard on a road-based 911, and it was, like we always know, it's form follows function. So the cars were getting faster, and the need for downforce to generate more grip was becoming an issue because the car had to compete on circuits and it had to compete in a variety of places. So the combination of increasing downforce and minimising drag was achieved incredibly well, especially when you consider that it was a shape that was already, as you say, it was 10 years old by the time they put aerodynamic aids on it. So it's the tipping point car. It's the 911 that connects really early 911s with the intent of where the model was going to go, even when the company didn't know, and even when there was thoughts that the 911 would be superseded by maybe the 928, there was that continual need to keep selling them, and to sell them, you've got to win races, and to win races, you've got to go quicker. And so they had to evolve the car to fit, whereas other manufacturers were bringing out new models.
It's a f***ing elegant solution. I mean, they could have put a giant wing on the back, but it just looks sensational.
It does, it looks just right. You know?
It's not like any other wing on any other car, is it?
No, it's not.
Most aerodynamic aids don't look like that.
But as we know, it had a lifespan because the Germans banned it. Look, 1974, in the German market, there was no more ducktail.
Well, their road rules didn't allow it. You know, it was quite funny. They did everything to try and get this wing through the German transport authorities, but they just weren't having a bar of it. Like they said, oh, it's, you know, like as far as pedestrian impact goes, you know, they were worried about, oh, well, if a motorbike runs into the back of it, they're going to hurt themselves on it. I'm like, well, if you're running into the back of a car with a motorbike, you're going to hurt yourself. They're like, oh yeah, but it's made out of fiberglass, it'll just disintegrate. Whatever they did to try and get the authorities to go with it, the guy who ran the department at the time just wasn't having a bar of it. So in Germany, they weren't allowed to run with the ducktail. So they did such a sensational job that they'd already sold 500 cars, which was the number that they needed to make, by October, the Paris Motor Show. So from that point on, they're like, oh, okay, well, we're selling them pretty well. We'll continue production. We'll keep selling them. So then they went to the next 1,000, which gave them enough for Group 3 rules as well. And they were just going so well, they kept selling them. So they ended up selling 1,580 cars by the end of the production year that they were selling the cars.
Today, if you walk into any Porsche centre globally, and you walk into their reception or into their parts department, and you look at the merchandise range, there is a single range dedicated to that model. The whole language of the car seems to speak to people that know nothing about cars. So there was something in it that it's one of those iconic, legendary things.